It's hard to watch that and know the stories of these incredible women in our church and men as well. We couldn't find the guys to come and film on the day that we filmed, but there's guys with amazing stories as well. Some of my favorite stories are about ordinary people who do extraordinary things. I'll give you a few examples. Many of you probably have never heard of Frank Willis, but Frank Willis was just an ordinary, everyday security guard. And he was working one day and found something wrong with a lock. And then he tried to fix it, and then the next day he came back, found the same problem with the same lock, and called it into the police, and they uncovered, because of his one phone call of an ordinary security guy, the Watergate scandal that led to President Nixon's resignation. We all know about that, but not too many people know about Frank Willis, who was the everyday person who made that call. How about the young schoolgirl in Pakistan? Her name was Malala. She was just trying to go to school one day. She was on the school bus, and the Taliban came on the school bus. They had heard that she was supporting women and young girls going to school and girls' education, and they came and they shot her in the face. And little did they know that this ordinary little Pakistani girl then would be promoted at the United Nations and literally speaking all around the world about the protection of young girls and women. How about this woman that many of us know today? But at the moment, nobody knew who little Rosa Parks was. She was just a working woman coming home on the bus. Her feet hurt. She was tired, right? And somebody asked her to move to the back, and she said, "Not today. Not today." This ordinary little woman sparked the Montgomery bus boycott, which sparked the rest of the civil rights movement as we know it today. It's the ordinary people who do extraordinary things. You know, it's only in the movies where we see superheroes changing the world, right? I don't know about you, but Spider-Man, Superman, Wonder Woman, none of them have been by my house lately. I don't know about you, but nobody's showing up to save me when I need some help. But it's the ordinary people that I call and say, "Will you pray for me? I'm having a rough day." It's the ordinary people who show up. I'll never forget the day that I had the revelation that I was average. I was in 7th grade, and they decided to start a gifted program in my middle school. And because I got really good grades and hung out with the smart kids, they took all my friends and me, and they gave us this special test. And all of my friends passed it and were promoted to the gifted class. But I'll never forget the day that the gifted school teacher sat down with me, and she said, "Beth, I know you're a hard worker." You know how they make the sandwich and start with something positive? "I know you study hard. I know you're a hard worker, but your grades, your test scores were average. And you're going to have to stay back with the average, ordinary kids." And I remember walking the hallway that day. Like, here I am going back. It's official. I've been tested. I'm average, right? But average has its advantages, right? Average people show up, and we live in what I like to call the real world, right? And so we show up and we live in the real world with real problems. And so we have a real compassion because we deal with the same problems as everybody else. I will tell you, average people are in proximity with problems, which gives us motivation to solve them, right? Because if I solve the problem that's in proximity to me, guess what? I'm helping me and helping others. So being average has its advantages. It's extraordinary people that do extraordinary things that change the world. Jesus changed the world with a small group of people. Think about this. Just the everyday people that were following people. There were government workers. There were people that just owned small businesses, farmers, fishermen, women who were just housewives sitting around helping Jesus. It was the average, ordinary, everyday people. And it must have worked because today around the world, stats tell us that 2.3 billion people are gathering on Sunday morning to worship Jesus. Because a handful of ordinary people, that's all right, you can clap for that. There's a story in the Bible that involves somebody so ordinary the Bible doesn't even tell their names. You ever tell a story, I'll come home, my husband's like, how was your day? I'm like, oh, it was great. Ariana and I did this, and then, Pastor Brandon, we did this, and, this and this happened. Then so-and-so stopped by the church, and, and I tell them names, right? Because names are important. These people were so average, the Bible doesn't even tell us their names. You talk about ordinary. They didn't even bother. We don't even know their names. In fact, it starts out like this, Luke 5. It says, some men. We don't know who they were. We don't know if they were old men. We don't know if they were young men. We don't even know what their names were. But some men came carrying a paralyzed man on a sleeping mat. They tried to take him inside to Jesus, but they couldn't reach him because of the crowd. So they went up to the roof and took off some tiles. And then they lowered the sick man on his mat into the crowd right in front of Jesus. Sounds like a Mission Impossible episode. You can just hear the music. Dun, 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 right? Seeing their faith, Jesus said to the man, young man, your sins are forgiven. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the religious law said to themselves, who does he think he is? That blasphemy. Only God can forgive sins. Good point. What do you think Jesus was trying to prove? So Jesus knew what they were thinking. And so he asked them, why do you question this in your hearts? Is it easier to say your sins are forgiven or stand up and walk? So I will prove to you that the Son of Man has the authority on earth to forgive sins. Then Jesus turned to the paralyzed man. He said, stand up, pick up your mat, and go home. And immediately, as everyone watched, there were witnesses, the man jumps up, picks up his mat, and went home praising God. Everyone was gripped with great wonder and awe, and they praised God, exclaiming, we have seen amazing things today. Would you pray with me? Lord, I just pray, Jesus, as we dive into your word today, that you would change our hearts. God, give us ears to hear. Give us hearts that will listen. God, let this word that is alive and active and sharper than a two-edged sword, let it activate our faith today and change our lives. In Jesus' name, everybody said. It's interesting that these ordinary guys decided to take this man to Jesus. Why do you think they did that? My hunch is that they had already tried the doctors. You ever go to the doctor and they can't help you? I have had too many of those experiences in my life where I show up and sometimes they can help you and sometimes it's a good experience and sometimes they're like, yep, I'm not quite sure. Try this. That's why they call it practicing medicine because sometimes they're practicing on us, right? I remember about 20 years ago, this woman called me. She was in labor, and she said, can you come and pick me up? And I said, yes, I will be right there. Hang up the phone. I speed over to her house. Where do you think I took her? I did not take her to McDonald's. I did not take her to the mall to go shop for baby gifts. I took her straight to the ER, and can I tell you, it's a good thing. Within minutes of us arriving, she gave birth to a baby. That baby was almost born in the front seat of my car. These friends knew the issue that this guy had was beyond their help. Just like I knew, I'm not a professional. I do not know how to deliver babies. I don't want this baby born in my car. I'm taking you to somebody who can help you. Ordinary people know where to go to find help. These were just some ordinary people. And I could hear them talking and saying, hey, what do you think we should do? And the other guy says, well, I know this man named Jesus is healing people. So why don't we try that? Why don't we take him there? I remember when my kids were in school, I used to tell them when they were struggling, usually in math class, because they're my kids. I would say, go find the smart kids. Sit by the smart kids. Ask them questions. Make friends with the smart kids. You got to know where to go for help, right? Those of you in college and still in school, use that advice. I guarantee you your letter grade will go up at least one letter grade if you sit beside the smart kid in class. I was worth the price of admission this morning, don't you think? How many know that we all have certain problems that only Jesus can fix? And I want us to know, I believe in doctors, and I believe in counselors, and I believe in friends, and I believe in pastors. God works through those people, right, to bring healing. I believe in CareNet, right, and people there to be the hands and the feet of Jesus. And at the same time, there are moments that I just need Jesus, and I have situations that only He can fix. What in your life do you need to take straight to the source? Ordinary people know where to go. Say it with me. Ordinary people know where to go. I think somebody needs to hear this morning. Some of us need to stop going to our horoscope. We need to stop buying crystals. We need to stop all that nonsense, and we need to know where to go and say, you know what? When I know where to go, I tell people this is the most powerful prayer that you can ever pray, and it's 3 words. I'm going to teach it to you all this morning. Jesus, help me. Jesus, help me. When you don't know where to go and what else to do, you say that prayer, and He will show up. Not only did they know where to go, they took it a step further. There's a difference between knowing where to go and actually going there, right? Right? Like, there are times that I know I need to go to a doctor or do something. I just don't do it, right? Like when my contacts are getting old, I'm like, oh, it's that time. I got to go back to the eye doctor so they can give me a fresh prescription. But sometimes I don't do it, and I run out of my prescription, right? So there's a difference in knowing where to go and actually going there. I remember praying for someone who was in a tough situation once, and at one point when I was praying, the Lord stopped me. You know, God will stop you sometimes. He'll say, shh, shh, hey, quiet. I have something to say, right? Because prayer isn't just us talking. It's a two-way conversation. And God said, I want you to stop praying about this, and I want you to do something about this, right? And I want you to be a part of the miracle. And so I said, okay, God. So I reached out to some friends, and we were able to help this young man. My compassion was moved to action. You know, feeling somebody else's pain. You ever hear that? I feel your pain, right? The struggle is real. Those are some of my favorite things. When people are telling me their problems, I'm like, I feel your pain. The struggle is real. But if we stopped there and we don't do anything about it, it's one thing, Chris, to say, I care about pregnant mamas. And it's another thing to say, we're going to give you a free ultrasound and support you. We're going to do everything we can to come around you so that you don't feel alone. Jesus said these words in this parable. He said in Matthew 25, he says, so I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger and you invited me into your home. I was naked, you gave me clothing. I was sick, you cared for me. I was in prison and you visited me. Now listen to this. Then the righteous ones will reply, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry and feed you? Or thirsty and give you something to drink? Or a stranger and show you hospitality? Or naked and give you clothing? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visit you? And this is what Jesus said. And the king will say, I tell you the truth. When you did it for one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it for me. Jesus was saying, you know, the best way to love me is to love my people. Ordinary people put their compassion into action. You ever know those people that say, I'm praying for you, but never show up and actually do anything, right? It's the ones that show up with soup on my doorstep when I think I'm dying of the flu that I know really love me, right? It's not the ones that just text me a little emoji hand, right? It's the ones that show up in my house and say, hey, here, can I do something for you, right? Ordinary people decide to do something. Ordinary people choose to align our beliefs with our behaviors. When we see a need, we meet a need, right? That's what people of faith do. That's what ordinary, everyday people are capable of doing. We understand that we are the church, that God is, we know that Jesus is the hope of the world, right? Jesus is the hope of the world. But guess what? God has called us to deliver that hope to the world. Just when I order something on Amazon, I'm expecting Amazon to send a delivery person. Now, when that delivery person shows up at my doorstep like they did yesterday, I don't say, thank you so much for making this. I know they didn't make it. I know they're just delivering it, right? You know, when we read the history books, it's the Christians who took care of the orphans and the widows. It's the Christians who opened the hospitals to take care of the sick. You know, when the Black Plague hit, it was the Christians who ran towards those who everybody else was staying away from, and they loved them, even at risk of dying themselves. And that was the greatest testimony to the world around. And they said, oh, we actually believe that you really do care, because when everybody was running away, you were running towards the hurting and the suffering. Ordinary people are the answer to the extraordinary problems that we see in the world. How many know the world's got some extraordinary problems, right? I feel like every day there's kind of a new problem popping up. I'm like, oh my goodness, what happened? There's another problem to worry about? Oh my goodness, I thought we were done with COVID. Now they're saying there's new things that might pop up someday. It seems like there's an ordinary problem or extraordinary problems. But here's what I love about these men, these nameless men, these average Joes that we don't even know anything about, right? They showed up, and guess what the story told us? They couldn't get through the front door, right? It was so crowded, they couldn't even get in the front door. And you know what? If that were me, I would have said, well, I tried. Hey, buddy, here's, a Chick-fil-A gift card. I'll go buy you lunch. Sorry, we tried. God bless you. Walk away. Isn't that what we do a lot of times? Like, hey, if it gets just a little too challenging, I'm just going to, bow out. But no, when they saw obstacles, they had creative compassion. How many know we need a little bit more creative compassion in the world, right? People who will say, you know what, I'm not sure exactly how to solve your problem, but we're going to figure it out. We're going to figure out something here to help you, right? Are we willing to move from compassion to action? I ask myself when I read this story, what's the secret sauce that would make these average, ordinary men that the Bible won't even tell us their names do something so crazy as to figure out how to hoist a man who's paralyzed on a mat up on a roof without our common everyday, ladder system that we have? What would possess them to do that? And I agree that, they had compassion. And they were moved, and they moved it to action. But I think underneath, there's a secret ingredient that we often miss. Now, most of you know I don't do much cooking in my house. My husband is the amazing chef of the house. Now, if you want some cookies or cupcakes or a pie, call me. I love to bake. But Greg does most of the cooking. But on the rare occasion that I cook, I always have this secret ingredient. It goes into my chicken. It goes into my meatballs if I make soup. And it's called Greek Freak. You're welcome. You could order some on Amazon. It's called Greek Freak. It makes everything good. It's my secret ingredient for almost everything that I ever make. And can I tell you, there was a secret ingredient to why these men did what they did. And I believe the ingredient was expectation. Do you really think they would have gone out of their way through all of that work to put their friend in front of a man that couldn't help them? Do you think, well, it's a slim chance, I doubt if anything's going to happen, but let's climb up on the roof and rip a hole in it and drop this guy in there and see what happens? They expected something to happen. That's why they went through the work of climbing the roof and ripping a hole in it. Ordinary people expect God to do extraordinary things in their lives. And I believe it's a formula that goes like this. If you add a little compassion and a little motivation and a little expectation, then we usually see God do some amazing things. Let me ask you this. What are you expecting God to do in your life? When you show up at church on Sunday mornings, what are you expecting? Are you expecting just a fun, beautiful, fun community? I hope you get that. I think we're pretty nice people here. I think we have some fun, cool people that are doing great things and love this community. I love how Linda shared in her story, hey, this is a beautiful community. This is a place where I feel welcome. This is a place where I feel, like Naya said, home. I feel like we're a family here. But underneath it all, I hope you're showing up because you expect God to do something bigger in your life. I hope you expect God, because here's the reality. I can't heal you today. I can't provide for you. I can't meet your needs. But guess what? Like those men, I can take you to the one who can. Right? I can take you to the one who can heal you. I can take you to the one who will provide for you. I will take you to the one that has the answers to everything you need. But I can't do it myself. But hope givers, we're the ones who take people and we deliver them to the one who can. And Jesus didn't disappoint. With one sentence, he says, get up, take up your mat. And supernaturally, guess what? God showed up and the extraordinary happened because a few ordinary guys said, yes, I believe. So much that God can do something. I'm going to have compassion. I'm going to put it into action. I'm going to get creative. I'm not going to let the crowd stop me. And I'm going to show up and expect God to do a miracle. Ordinary people know where to go. I believe that there's a bunch of ordinary people today. And I don't take that as an insult, because guess what? I've been tested. I'm with you. I'm average. I'm ordinary. I might have a doctorate, and people might think I'm really smart. I just work really hard. I just study a little extra long. Ordinary people know where to go. You could have gone anywhere this morning. You could be out at brunch right now. You could be out eating Eggs Benedict, waffles, right? But no, you said, I know where to go. I'm going to go to church, and I'm going to get some more of Jesus today. Ordinary people put compassion into action. They pray for people. They give. They go to where the hurting are. And they say, hey, we're going to put our compassion into action. And ordinary people, well, we know not to expect anything from us. I wake up every morning, and this is how my prayer time begins. You guys can steal this one if you want. If you're just not sure how to start your prayers in the morning, this is me and Jesus. Good morning, Lord. Here I am, the mess that is me. You and I both know that if you don't show up, I'm in trouble. That's how my prayers start out almost every day. Lord, here I am, the mess that is me. And we both know if you don't show up and do something extraordinary, it's not going to be pretty, right? You got to help me, Lord. And I think of this space 2 years ago, and it was just an ordinary storage room. We showed up to tour this space. There were wires hanging all over. There was broken tile. The mall used it for storage, so there were Christmas trees and reindeers. Reindeer. See? Average. You don't say reindeers, everyone. You say reindeer. And I walked into this ordinary, messed up place, and I said, God, this ordinary place could be a church someday. God, what if we cleaned it up a little bit? What if we reached out to some friends and partners and said, hey, would you come and would you give? And what if a place in a dark, dying mall became a place of life and healing and hope to the broken and the hurting? God, what if? And guess what? You're here today because a bunch of ordinary people said, yes, I'll go, I'll give, I'll pray. You know, this weekend we challenged you that it was Hope Givers Weekend. And what does that mean? Well, that means a bunch of ordinary people are going to show up, and we're going to give God our best. And we've been praying that God would bless this ministry. And this ministry needs every single one of us to give something to make it move forward. Can I just tell you that? Last week I said, I want you to just come ready on Sunday to give something to keep this ministry moving forward. We have a vision to start a youth center. Right next door to the kids' space is an empty space. And the mall says we could have it for a youth center. They didn't say we could have it for free, but they said we could have it if we pay the lease and sign an extra lease. And it's a big give because honestly, right now, we're just getting started. We're only 24 months old. But I challenged all of us to give something. If you're a poor college student, give something. If you're a single mom, give something. If you're retired, living on a fixed income, give something. If you're a family just struggling to make ends meet, give something. Because when ordinary people all get together and give something, God can do something even bigger. And last night, we had a Hope Givers benefit. We had the superintendent's office represented. We have 2 city council people represented. There were business owners from the city. There were other pastors. And we raised over $15,000 for this place. And it was a miracle to see people come together and give. But can I tell you, it's going to take about $30,000 to operate the youth center for a year. And so this morning, I want to invite you to grab the cards under your seat. And these are the 3 things that I think ordinary people can show up and do. Right? Ordinary people, Pastor Kim. Ordinary people can pray. If you're here this morning and you say, I commit to pray for the table. I commit to pray that this place would be provided for, that God would bring revival in this place. There will be a revival of compassion. There will be a revival of people coming to find hope in Jesus for the first time. Would you just check that first box if you just agree? I'm just going to pray. Next, the second box is give. You know, we're all called to do something. And if you commit to give regularly, I understand many of us are in situations where we're just struggling to survive. But when everybody gives something, God can take our fish and our loaves and do a miracle with it. And some of you have been showing up at this church for 2 years, and you've been waiting for other people to give. Can I tell you, it's your turn. It's your turn now, because if this church is going to continue to move forward, we need every single one of us to continue to give. And lastly is go. I love that this is a church, like Linda said, that serves the community. Pastor Ariana plans every month some type of outreach. Last week, we had 100 people here at Taste of the Nations. We were able to minister to people who have never even held a Bible in their hand. This sweet woman from China came, and I said, would you like a Bible? And she said, yes, I've never had a Bible, but I've always wondered. And so I gave her a Bible, and she held it like she was so amazed to hold a Bible for the first time. Will you show up with us once a month and say, hey, I'll serve? I'll serve a meal. I'll serve the kids. I'll serve in the tech team. I'll serve somewhere. Some of you are holding out. We need a drummer. Can I just, unashamedly, we need more drummers in our church. If you got kids, teach them, get them some drum lessons, right? Who's drummer? Over here, are you a drummer? Are you a drummer? I see you smiling. Don't hide from me. Oh, busted. Busted. Okay, if he's not a drummer, I'm just speaking in faith, you will be. I can teach you. We got people who can teach you. But as we close this last song together, I just feel like the Lord wants us to take a moment and just respond to this word. I'm just so amazed to see what God can do when a bunch of ordinary people show up. I'm just so amazed to see what God can accomplish when people say, you know what, I don't have much, but I'll show up and I'll pray and I'll give and I'll go. And look what God has done. We have reached over 5,000 people. By the end of this year, will have given away 900 backpacks. Over 1,500 meals to serve people with just a small group of ordinary people. Don't you love the church? Don't you love the family of God? Would you stand to your feet with me this morning?